I know in your book you talked about the destruction of the nuclear family, right? Do you think like the welfare like system help in the destruction of the nuclear family, or do you feel like that was kind of a necessity during that time?
No, it wasn't a necessity during that time, and it definitely destroyed the black nuclear family. Lyndon B. Johnson came in with the man in the house rule, and it kicked black men out the house. It rewarded black women for not having a man in the house to get welfare. If you look at single black parent households in the 1950s, it was at like 25%. If you look at it now, it's around 70%. So it's all surrounding, systemic racism. Lyndon B. Johnson was, he was a known white supremacist, a racist. He said the N-word. He's on recording saying it. And you just got to look at where these things start. So it definitely didn't benefit the nuclear black family. It helped destroy it. And
still is today.
yeah, that's just one of the tools that they used.
Right. So you said they. Who do you think is to blame for it?
It's white supremacy to blame for it because Lyndon B. Johnson put it in. He's the one who put in the rule of the man in the house rule, and you couldn't have a black man in the house in order to get the welfare benefits in the 1960s. Once he put that into place,
Right.
He could have easily said you have to have a black man in the house to get the welfare, but they wanted us out.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, it just the terminologies. If he said you have to have a black man in the house in order to get these benefits, that would have benefited the black family. They know that the black man is the head of the black household. So they know that's where the benefits are when the black men are in the household and leading the household. So he said, we got to come up with ways to get them out of the household. That was one of the ways to get us out.
Why do you think families then use this to their benefits? Like I know there's other race and groups of families that the wife does get the welfare while the husband then own businesses where they're not, maybe they're not married or whatever, or maybe they have a different name in America, if you get what I'm saying, because I don't want to name the group, but
I know the group.
Yeah, so they definitely do it. They have large families. The woman has 5-6 kids, lives off the benefits of the government while the husband is established, financially, and they use, the system to help them and still followed it. Why do you think it's the opposite for us?
You're talking about when people plan it. You're talking about communities that are together. Like they do that in the Jewish communities and stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
But that's a community that's tight-knit, they're together. They're a monolith in Jewish communities, and that's the problem with the black community. We say we're not a monolith, but there's certain things that we need to be a monolith about. There's certain things that we just need to all be uniformed on. They're together.
Right.
They have their private schools. They go to church on Saturday. They live in the same community. They'll buy a property. They'll see a house for sale across the street. They'll buy that property to move one of their cousins or family members into that property. These people are organized how we need to be. You're talking about people who plan it. We've been destructive. We've been constantly attacked. So now they're destroying the black community anyway. They're locking black men up. There was a setup, the drugs and guns and violence and all the stuff that they poured into our community. So now we're already in destruction. They're already attacking us. So now the black women, they come here, they give them this option like, look, as long as he's not in the house, you can be fine. And then you had the modern feminist movement to set up by all of these lesbians and white supremacists. So they're spreading the message, you don't need a man. So if you give them all of the tools to really not need us, now, you've already spread the message and attacked them mentally. Now you're giving them the assets to not need us. It's like we're not unified no more. So that's why they're unified. We're not.
I think obviously when we had these conversations, pre-welfare state, we had much more obviously nuclear families. We were at one point we were married at the same rate, if not even higher, than even the white families had. And obviously after the welfare state, we start to have, we we stopped making marriage a priority. We started being more reliant on government assistance, and then you see that the crumbling of the nuclear family, obviously the war on drugs and stuff like that just only adds on top of that. So I think for sure it's hard you can't dismiss that. I know people try to say, oh, well, you know, they need it because of the economy and the men wasn't working and X, Y, and Z, or the men magically just woke up one day and decided, you know what, I don't want to be a father no more. I'm going to just run away. Like, that's like, it's a false, you know, it's a myth. Like, you know what I mean? So they keep trying to paint it that black men just woke up one day and decided, you know what, we just going to stop being the head of the household or the leaders of the household and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I think we need to study it more. I think in the classrooms it needs to be taught, you know. I do want to get to this next topic about reparations.
Quickly though,
Yeah.
because that's a big thing that we just was talking about,
Right.
like with the modern feminist movement being set up. There's a woman named Margaret Sloaner. She started what they call the National Black Female Organization. It's NBFO in 1973. If you look at Margaret Sloaner, she was a black lesbian, so she didn't like men. So all of these movements were set up by lesbians or people or white supremacists and things of that nature. If you look up if you look up Barbara Gettings or Harry Hay, they are looked at as the face of the LGBTQIA movement in America that came about in the late 1960s. This came about after Stonewall. They literally admitted to latching on to the civil rights movement and learning how to fight for rights from the civil rights movement. And this came after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. So once they had all of our leaders out of the way, you know, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., etc., then that Martin Luther King died in 1968. Stonewall was in June 28th of 1969. And they had to attach a black person to Stonewall, Marsha P. Johnson, who wasn't even, they call him a transgender, but he was just a gay black man. And they had to attach him, he was a gay black man who dressed in drag. And they had to attach him to the Stonewall movement to make it, you know, get more attention because he was a black man. So they used him. He said in an interview himself, he wasn't even at Stonewall. He said that out his own mouth. So, and then they lie about Stonewall, and they lie about the beginning of that movement because they say Stonewall was this gay nightclub where they harassed and stuff like that. What they don't tell you about is how all of those nightclubs were owned by the Italian mafia. They don't tell you about, the Stonewall was owned by the Italian mafia, the Gambino crime family. There was another gay nightclub called Cookies. It was Cookies or Kookies, Kookys. That was owned by the Italian mafia. They had another nightclub called the 10th of Always. That was owned by the Italian mafia. This is why they were, you know, being raided and stuff like that. They were owned by the mafia. It was prostitution. It was watered down alcohol. All of that stuff was a whole bunch of illegal activity. It wasn't because of them being gay nightclubs and stuff like that. They don't tell you these things. So all of this stuff is now used today to manipulate, you know, the black community and our children and the youth and stuff like that. And it's a distraction. They literally destroyed our movement to bring in the LGBTQIA, and black people are now trying to be intersectionalists and intersectionality, which makes no sense. From the standpoint of a martial artist, if I had to fight two people, I would want to fight them in a row. I wouldn't want to fight them simultaneously. So how does it make sense to say, oh, I'm black and I'm gay, I want to fight for black and gay at the same time? You can't do that. That doesn't make sense. You fight for one has to be a priority.
They said something similar about that with allegedly the Black Lives Matter movement as well. Like the same thing you're saying.
Was founded by the lesbians?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go on the website, it was a whole modern feminist website. Like it was nothing to do with men.
It was like
that was true.
Erasing the men from the homes.
Yeah.
It could all be lies. I'm not really too sure.
No, that was true. I went on the website. It's true.
For sure.
Yeah.